Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the November 18th, 2024 Board of County Commissioners check-in. We have a short agenda this afternoon. We will start with item number 2 under Commissioners' items, scaled back courthouse renovations.
Thank you so much, Vice Chair and Commissioners. Good afternoon. Wanted to provide an update that our team has met as they come to the table. Our team has met with the stakeholders. We had a really great meeting with all the stakeholders on the current courthouse campus to discuss the different moves and configurations. And we had briefed individual commissioners on a decision point where there isn't quite consensus, but I believe that there's understanding to where people are at. And it really had to do with, is it building 2, second floor, and the placement of pretrial services. And so it's going to be our recommendation that we leave pretrial services in the building that they're in so that building 2, floor 2, can be outfitted for Superior Court. The space studies show that they need that space. In talking with the judges, who we really appreciate their openness to hear all different sides, they also believe that the space that they're getting isn't the space needs that they ultimately need, and so therefore that space is definitely needed. We've talked with Carrie Hennon, and while she would like to be in a different situation, is willing to be a team player. And I think there's going to be a lot of different conversations from now until as we move forward. So there's really no ideal situation because we are making the current courthouse configuration work for all the different parties. And we have talked to all the stakeholders that if, as we go through this process, the disposition of certain aspects of the campus need to change, or we move forward with selling different aspects, not saying we are, just saying that that could be an option, that we might have to reconfigure again, and so folks are aware of that. And so with that, we would like just to provide that update to the board members and let them know that we would like to move forward so that the planning team can continue the next steps of the development of that reconfiguration and get it moving forward for the construction. And I believe that although we've taken some time, that we would be on schedule to have that done in the late part of 2025.
We'll start hopefully in February with board's direction, in September-ish 2025 with space moves.
And so that's kind of where we're at. If we had more space, I think we would have a few other options, but I think it's a good direction that we're headed, and it takes into consideration the different needs, but not everyone's getting everything that they want. So with that, turn over to any questions. Or Josh, anything you'd like to add?
I'll just jump in real quick in terms of the details. So that's the high-level overview. This team that you see assembled here is working on the details for an e-brief that will provide the commissioners. But as the county manager laid it out, that's the direction and the recommendation. I will say words matter, and ensuring that as we're building trust to the next step of the courthouse and the government center, that the title of this being the Scale Back Courthouse Hill Renovation is really important. It's scaled back from that original, 50 to 45 million, and the team has worked an estimate of around $2.4 to $4.4 million. So I really appreciate the hard work of the team, the partners and the stakeholders that we've had, and you'll receive more detailed information, but thank you for the overview from the county manager.
And I do think, commissioners, that there's an opportunity that when this item comes forward for initiation, whether it's an AIS or some other action that the board needs to take, that we do utilize that opportunity to message on the fact that we have changed directions, that we are trying to be responsible with taxpayer dollars, that all the stakeholders are willing to forego a more expensive remodel so that we can address the needs today and use those other dollars for a long-term plan. And whether that, and I do know there's some interest from some of the internal stakeholders to have the board maybe do some type of proclamation or something saying that they're all committed to the long-term solution without, there's no way for us to commit to what that solution is, but just saying that we really are committed to a long-term solution of a courthouse in the future and addressing all those space needs.
How are we communicating this kind of, this, I think this change in direction is a responsible move, and how are we communicating that to the public?
Yeah, that's what I think after if we were to get the thumbs up on the direction today, then the team will come back in that e-brief, will lay out what the next steps are. And I think we need a couple of different key component of communications to the public about what's taking place. Because it is, I think, a very favorable outcome that all our stakeholders are in agreement. Again, I would say agreement on a long-term plan while we're working through the concessions that folks are making to get there.
Yeah.
And that's something that I want to stress that was communicated to me from all our partners, is they are making concessions to go with this plan because they believe in the board's resolve to move forward with a long-term plan. And as we explore that, going out to RFP, and there's some big steps that we'll take, and we'll outline what we can do from a press component to getting the word out.
Commissioner Mejia?
Staff has done to coordinate this effort and for
You want to?
coming back with. Can you hear me all right?
Now we can.
Okay. So first of all, I guess I just would like to thank staff for all the work that they've done in coordinating all of this and getting answers for us. My question's in relation to Chandler Court. And so right now, kind of the reason that the courts have been able to deal a little bit specifically with the court, issues is because we have Chandler Court, and I know that that expires in 2026. And so I guess for me, it's, I would like to give direction to the county manager to kind of figure out what are the next steps in relation to Chandler Court, because once that is over, we're losing 2 courtrooms right there, one for district court and one for superior court.
Yeah, Commissioner, we'd be happy to, with the team, take back the dynamics of Chandler Court and make that part of our report out to you in the future, because we do know that that's a need. The courts utilize that extensively, and with the time frame of how we're paying for that and the runway on that, we'd want to make sure we're tracking that so we come back with some options for your consideration. So thank you for flagging that.
Is there anyone else? Commissioner Menser?
I guess I'd just like to go back to the first point on the pretrial services, because when you briefed the commissioners, I think you briefed us all pretty much around the same time, and that was still kind of being discussed. And I guess, can you remind me, so with pretrial services agreeing to remain where they are, can you just remind us what the downside of that was, versus having them move into a place maybe that wasn't as appropriate, but what was the motivation for trying to get them out of building 4, just because I don't quite just remember that.
Thank you, Commissioner Menser. And I would say, just as Josh said, words matter, I wouldn't say agreed. I would say that they're willing to be a team player, but their concerns still would remain. And that is, that they will be on the campus block, and everyone else would have moved out. So ideally, they would like to be closer. There's, I think, 2 main components, and then I'll hand over to Josh to see if I've missed any of the nuances. One is they'd like to be closer to where folks are receiving the service, so that it's integrated. And so as they're coming to the courthouse complex and they're accessing the different court services, if they were embedded there, if there was enough space, there would be a more synergistic relationship. And the other one is operational, from a security standpoint. Being over there without neighbors in close proximity, there's always for staff, just a little sensitivity to that and understanding some of the history of what has taken place up on the courthouse. We sympathize with that perspective as well. Josh, anything that you think we missed?
I think operationally that covers it.
I think we were talking about logistically too, like decreasing the footprint and then potentially being able to look at selling or doing something right with some of the other property if we got everybody kind of corralled into one space and made it easier to make decisions about property we may not need.
And yeah, you're absolutely right, Commissioner Fournier, and that's still on the table. That's still very much part of the conversation. That as we go down this path, if the direction that we take affords us the ability to reposition a portion of the courthouse complex sooner rather than some of the others, that then we would be moving pretrial services and looking at putting them in an area that we have considered in the past. And so that's been also communicated to the stakeholders. But being that that's not the decision at this point and we have the extra space, knowing that Superior Court has been so hard pressed for space in the past, and that even the space we're giving them isn't the entire space that they need effectively operationally in the future. We're just trying to make it work for all parties.
Can you remind me, I don't have my paperwork in front of me, the resource hub stays in building 4?
Yes.
So they wouldn't be totally alone, they'd be with the resource hub folks?
Correct.
Okay.
But just to piggyback on Commissioner Fournier's statement, it will create a decision that we'll have to make down the road if we do have a potential buyer in building 4 about what.
But we would have to deal with the resource hub in the same way.
That's right.
Yeah, and we've mapped out some options. But, I think those could be down the road, a year plus down the road. So we think we can get to those options without major impacts. And it's been part of the conversation with the stakeholders so that no one would be surprised.
All right. Any further discussion on this?
I'd say that's key, is the goal of this has been no surprises.
Yeah.
So engaging with all the stakeholders, appreciate everybody coming together, appreciate Leonard's leadership and making sure that everyone felt heard, the data that was provided by the team, like making sure that everyone is participating in a full and engaged manner. This project, I think, hopefully, if we can continue that going forward, it'll build our muscles for the next big stages.
So what we would want today is if the board is in agreement with this direction, so staff can continue to plan the next steps, that e-brief timeline, and then decisions that will come forward so we can initiate the construction timeframe and get the revised remodel initiated. So we look for a thumbs up.
I'm good.
Thumbs up.
Thanks so much.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, leaders.
All right. Are there any other commissioner items? Reports on external boards and commissions. Commissioner Menzer?
I was looking over my list. I've had a lot of different things, but SBCC, SJGC, Mayor's Forum, there wasn't really anything. We just touched on a whole bunch of things, but I don't think there was anything breaking news from that. I guess one thing I wanted to highlight was just I went to the Offutt Lake Management District presentation where they unveiled the Herrera, the contractor, unveiled the findings, or not the findings, but the recommendations of the IVAMP, and the steering committee basically presented its proposal to the community. So it was super interesting for me to see, like, from the very front end, like how the steering, like what kind of information they got from Herrera, and then what they did with that, and how they crafted their recommendations, and then what the community thought about that and asked back. So it's a very useful meeting, and I would just like to commend, I would like to tell my seatmates that this process, I think, was extremely well done. Like, when we think of how this should play out on a lake management district front. Like, I saw what I would want to see, which was really engaged questions, really thoughtful approach from the steering committee. You know, the leaders of the steering committee kept coming to the board saying, we're not trying to put chemicals in our lake if we don't need to, and we're going to think this through. And they weren't lying. Like, they were very thoughtful about the areas that they targeted. They like took their budget and what everything cost and what the effectiveness was, and they tried to match it up in a really careful way. They're going to target 2 areas and try harvesting mechanical with no chemical intervention whatsoever. They're going to take another area and use a chemical treatment, but one of the least aggressive ones in a targeted way, and see if that works. And then they can adaptively manage their plan. So I just really want to commend the community down there for going about this the right way, and we'll see what kind of results they get. But I wanted to share that. And then something else I was going to say, but it's kind of slipping my mind, so I'll just leave it with that. But that was a good meeting. I also went to the Pattison Lake Association, which was not the Lake Management District, and our staff did a good job of presenting information to that group as well. So it was a week of evening lake meetings for me. So anyway, thank you.
Commissioner, if I could just add,
Sir.
I think the board would agree, but I just wanted to, even though he's not here, give a special mention and call out to Rob Gilder for his work in support of staff and in leading the lake management districts towards successful conclusions. I see him work tirelessly, sometimes at early morning meetings. He was here like at 7 o'clock in the morning, meeting with them to go over financials, and I just really appreciate his leadership and communication throughout the process.
Yeah, and I'm sure all that behind-the-scenes work led to what I saw, which was a meeting that had no county participation whatsoever. I was there as an observer, and these guys were doing it on their own, and the right information was being conveyed by the steering committee to the community about what the appropriate role of the LMD was. And so, I mean, it all just seemed to fit in a way that I think was heartening to see.
Wonderful.
Nice. Commissioner Mejia?
I've been very busy with a number of committees. I can go more thoroughly next week. I guess the thing that I will report on is that during this time, me and the county manager have been having meetings with the co-chairs of the Racial Equity Council. And so we had a meeting this last Friday to kind of discuss, what their next meeting was going to be and steps moving forward. Basically, Jen is going to be the staff lead, and she's going to lead them through a strategic planning session starting in January. We decided for December, it would be good though to have a joint meeting with the commissioners, right? And to kind of discuss steps moving forward, priorities, the resolution, and so, we've been kind of trying to meet their requests that they've had. Of course, when they first reached out, they had 3 requests. It was for commissioner involvement, for staff resources, and what was the third one, Leonard?
It was also to have a role in, as we
The interview. Yes, that's right.
to sit on one of the interview panels.
Yes, and so we've kind of laid out a timeline, and so at the meeting, Leonard's going to kind of cover that in December and how we're trying to meet, the request. So that meeting will be forthcoming in December, and so just wanted to give a heads up to all of the commissioners.
Yeah, and if I could add, we think that this might be a good idea to do like an annual time for us, for the commissioners to connect with the Racial Equity and Inclusion Council members as a time just to debrief on the year and look at the year forward. So that'd be a great opportunity. Rob is going to take the lead with Jen on scheduling something, but we hope in the next couple of weeks, all of you will have a chance to connect with them and provide your perspectives on the next steps.
Thank you, Commissioner Mejia. I attended the Internal Audit Committee That was my first one that I've been able to make it to, and it was eye-opening and obvious that there's a lot of work that's being done there. I was really impressed with the internal auditor, Brandon, and I've got an upcoming one-on-one scheduled with him. Had a joint animal services kind of update meeting with their director and the assistant city manager, Lacey, as well as the county manager, where we talked further about their budget and operations. We had the steady meeting just recently. It was held in Yelm, and we got a really good update on things that Yelm is doing and kind of a year wrap up on some of their economic development and kind of recreation programs. And then met with the TCOM director, reading the tea leaves in anticipation of Commissioner Edwards' departure, just kind of seeing how the director sees how we kind of intermingle with their board and the county commissioners, and got an update on kind of where they're at and where they're going. And that is it for my report. Commissioner Edwards?
Okay. The main thing is that I went over to the Washington County Insurance Fund Board meeting in Chelan. That's a annual event. And about the only thing I can really give you that you can be thinking about is the rates are going up. And so I think I'll just leave it there. We all know that we seem to be hit pretty hard. I also met with Judge Skinder on Friday, and we went over some of these courthouse things. And the Nisqually River Council, and I gave them the reassurance that we talked about culvert replacement, how we started off on that, I believe, on the right foot years ago, and we're going to continue on that salmon enhancement program. And steady. I was there with everybody else, I guess, was steady too. That's good for me. Thank you.
Commissioner Klaus?
I have a couple. Last week, I attended the Regional Housing Council meeting where we approved the 2025 legislative priorities. That's pretty exciting. I think we've got some good priorities coming up for next year. There was an ORCA meeting I'm working on reviewing the video of. I didn't attend that meeting, but it sounds like Commissioner Mejia might give an update on that next week. And there was also an emergency food and shelter program meeting last week with one announcement that they are taking over the operations of Mason County. So that's kind of a new thing. Waiting to receive the meeting minutes from Kathy King, the coordinator of that board. She should be emailing those over hopefully this week. I also had a topic I wanted to bring up to my seatmates regarding my position on my external boards and committees. I have a couple things, but the first one is I'm seeking clarification on the motion that was made to remove me from my external boards and committees. As last week, it was recommended by Commissioner Mejia at the Regional Housing Council meeting that I don't ask any questions during the meetings, but instead provide them in writing via email. And I just wanted to clarify that motion, as it was not my understanding that I was being suspended from speaking at meetings, but rather just attending as the representative and taking votes. Commissioner Fournier, you made the motion. If you'd like to clarify, that would be helpful.
Just trying to think it through. I think my intention, or my intention on the motion was that it would the alternate for the committee would be the representative of the board. And I would think that any of these meetings that are open to the public, anyone is able to attend, and whatever the rules of that board are for public comment, or what would govern that board or that committee, is kind of the way that I would understand it. But as far as being a voting member that is there to represent the board, kind of just, being frank, the intention was to limit liability of the county, since there was a lot that was unknown at that time, and then to also free up the commissioner to be able to deal with any ongoing investigation. But there's nothing restricting anybody from attending any of these open public meetings as a citizen and participating however their, whatever the decorum is or whatever the rules are of engagement for that board or that committee. That would be my understanding. If a commissioner that's a representative of the board wants, like if I'm going to attend the JASCOM meeting and you had, or Commissioner Menser or Commissioner Edwards had something that you wanted brought up at that meeting, there'd be nothing wrong with one of the other commissioners providing me with that comment for me to bring as that board representative. I think that makes sense.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
But I mean, maybe Commissioner Mejia has something that, as far as her intent.
No, that's kind of how I saw it as well. And so that's why I kind of made that reminder during the Regional Housing Council meeting.
Commissioner Edwards?
I guess, we all are in this very uncomfortable situation that we're having to deal with. And I think one of the issues here is we have been advised by council not to be discussing this particular issue at this time because Commissioner Klaus's council told our council not to be discussing it. So I don't want to get into any of the particulars, but I think you gave a satisfactory answer until we do get to the bottom of this. And I think I guess, is this meeting a public meeting, isn't it, that we're having today?
It is, yes.
And so, the public should know that we don't enjoy this. I'm sure none of the parties involved enjoy this. But we are working within certain guidelines and been advised by council at the request of council to stay clear of this topic. So that might be why we haven't brought this up other than this. And no criticism of Commissioner Klaus wanting to clarify something, but so it isn't like we're going to have a kind of a conversation about this. As far as I'm concerned, I'm going to try and go along with council at this point in time. Thank you.
Commissioner Menser?
If we were going along with council, Commissioner Edwards, there wouldn't be this issue at all because you would have followed council's advice not to impose this motion. So I think that's pretty.
That was not council's
easy.
direction, Commissioner Menser.
Wasn't direction, it was advice, but.
It was actually not advice. I will push back on that.
Okay, well, I will push back on the notion that Commissioner Edwards has been following the advice of council all through this process, because he has not, nor have you, frankly.
Okay.
Well, with that being said, I just want to bring to the board's attention that this Wednesday marks 100 days since the investigation into this complaint against me began. I have cooperated fully with the process, and the extended timeline has caused unnecessary delays and disruptions to county operations. The final written report has been pending for a number of weeks, yet there has been no update on its release. The ongoing delay has left my external boards and commissions burdened by my absence, and I can answer any questions about that you may have, as I've written down all of the dates and folks who have been absent or present during those meetings. This has limited the county's ability to fully participate in critical decision-making processes, and for these reasons, I move to reinstate myself to all external boards and commissions immediately.
I'll second.
All right, I'm not sure if this is we had a hang up earlier when there was a motion made. Is this I will look to, I don't know, is this?
Are they able to make a motion?
You may make a motion, it's final action that is restricted. since this was not noticed to have final action during this meeting, but you can make motions.
I would push back on that as we've made motions in previous meetings, and I'm happy to pull those up if I need to.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to reinstate Commissioner Klaus to external boards and commissions. We'll open it up for discussion. The motioner has the right to begin discussion, so that is to you, Commissioner Klaus.
Yes, I do have a discussion point. I was elected to serve the people of Thurston County, and the continued restrictions on my ability to fulfill those responsibilities, particularly when the allegations have been found unsubstantiated, are untenable. The investigation has already taken far too long, and the lack of resolution is creating confusion among our partners and impacting the county's ability to function efficiently.
Commissioner Edwards?
I guess I'd just like to take this opportunity to point out that no members on the Board of County Commissioners, except Commissioner Klaus, brought this to our attention as a problem through her inappropriate actions. I'm not going to get into what those are, because I think, again, council has advised us to stay out of this, so I'm going to leave it at that. But nobody else except Commissioner Klaus brought this as a problem to the county. We've spent thousands of dollars, and that's the taxpayers paying for issues they should not have to ever deal with. But yet they are. We find ourselves here. I don't know why this has to escalate, but I've never been one to back down from a discussion on an inappropriate topic if it had to be. And as far as I'm concerned, this is an inappropriate topic at this time due to council's advice.
Thank you, Commissioner
I'm
Edwards.
willing to vote.
Commissioner Menser?
I'm going to ask, I don't know where everybody's vote is, but if previously it had been said that, back in September, it was, I think when we debated this last, most thoroughly, it was talked about waiting for the written report, and now it's a couple of months later and we don't have that report. And if that's still the position of my seatmates, I'm going to assume for a moment that it is. I guess I'm wondering, is there some update that we can have about when we could see that? If that is the kind of pivotal thing that we're sort of waiting for in order to resolve this, because I haven't heard much about it here in the last couple of weeks. I thought it was kind of any day now type of thing, but I've been feeling that way for a few weeks, so I'm not sure.
Thank you. County Manager?
Yeah, thank you so much, Commissioner Menser. And I would agree that it has been a fluid process, but I understand from Human Resources, who's taken the lead on this second component of the investigation, that things should be wrapping up here in the next few days so that there could be a draft for their review, and then we would be scheduling hopefully in the first week of December, although it hasn't been confirmed, but we'd look to schedule an executive session to discuss it in detail with the full commission.
Okay. Are there any other comments from commissioners?
The only comment I'll say is in response to Commissioner Edwards, in terms of whether or not this discussion is appropriate. I feel it's extremely inappropriate to remove me from my external boards and commissions and then not show up to almost all of the meetings. And I won't call anybody out right now, but I just want to say, if you're going to remove a commissioner from external boards and commissions, then you should probably be attending those meetings.
All right. I stated from the beginning that I wasn't willing to change my position until after a report was issued. I'm going to stand by that. I'd heard it stated that the allegations were unsubstantiated. That was an opinion, I think, and it was stated by one commissioner that the most egregious allegations were unsubstantiated, not that all allegations were unsubstantiated. That I think I agree with. given that, but I would say that the most egregious allegations were ones of a criminal nature that I heard made by Commissioner Klaus herself against the subordinate that no longer works for us. And those criminal allegations seem to be unsubstantiated. But other than that, my biggest concerns are with some of the things that were admitted by Commissioner Klaus herself to us. And I'm not going to speak any further about that until after the report's out. And I think that the report will stand, and whatever comes out in that, I'll make a decision for me at that point. But I'm not in favor of passing this motion, but I look forward to having a discussion about it after the report is issued, which it sounds like is soon.
I think it's interesting, Commissioner Fournier, that you bring up any criminal allegations that may have been made against the complainant. I believe any of those allegations of that nature would have had to be made in executive session. So do you care to elaborate the basis for bringing that up in a public meeting?
You just said that they were made in executive session, so I'm not going to talk about it.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments from commissioners? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye, sorry.
Motion fails.
Is that a 4-1 vote, Chair?
Yes.
Time answer was an aye.
No, that was an aye. I just didn't get my mute off quickly enough.
All right, I'll call for a vote again. All those in favor of passing the motion, say aye.
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 Those in favor of not passing the motions, or no, those against the motion, say nay.
Nay.
Nay. All right, it is 2-3. Motion fails. All right, any other commissioner items? Hearing none, that concludes the agenda. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.